All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome on in to the Disc Swap, episode 10. Uh, I have here a guest that's been mentioned several times and yet still hasn't made an appearance until now. The man who runs MGS4, Sergeant
Hi.
Silent. How are you doing this morning?
Hey, I'm doing good. Technically it's one now, but
Yep.
I'm doing great.
Shh.
I'm still waking up technically because I didn't sleep all that great, but I flipped my schedule around for this, and I'm good to go.
Yeah, no, it's very much appreciated. And so, okay, we were trying to start about an hour and a half ago, but things happen. Python things happen. But yeah, no, we're here. We're gonna be talking about some AGDQ game submissions. What did I say? Did I say 8 or 9? Oh, I see what's going on here. So yeah, it's fine. Everything's fine. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
But yeah, we're gonna be talking about some AGDQ game submission stuff. We're gonna be talking about some things that we've been working on at MGSR. I know we have at least one new record in MGS1 again. And we're going to be talking about some MGS4 since we've got Sarge here. But to lead things off, we've got something that has been mentioned several times in the Discord. We have had a submission process, and we have come up with a rudimentary schedule so far for the channel's first anthology relay race. So we're going to be doing MGS 1, 2, 3, 4, and Twin Snakes for this one. And Sarge, I believe you're going to be running 4 against Sparty?
Yeah, so considering 4 didn't get a lot of submissions, me and Sparty are actually coming to a middle ground for this. He's going to go up to New Game Plus, which is not something he usually does, but I'm going to actually remove the Big Boss mask. So you're going to see both of us on a very middle of the road difficulty doing something that we don't usually do. So it should be a pretty interesting, even MGS4 run out there.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty. It sounds like it's gonna be fun. So this is gonna be the first time that we're actually gonna be putting on a relay race, which it should be interesting from like a technical standpoint. That we got our boys Roy. Well, I know at least Roy is on board. I'm not sure, but Chusa might also be lurking in the background to make sure shit doesn't go on fire or anything. But yeah, we got a host of people who are very ready for this thing. But yeah, it's gonna be a good time. The date we have set for that is Sunday, October 6th, which, by the way, is also the same day as the games list for AGDQ releases. So, if you have your calendars marked for one, you've got them both known.
Some people might be too busy checking out the list to come to the relay.
Most people at this point have at least a browser with multiple tabs.
They do that? What?
No, impossible.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the anthology. It's gonna be interesting to see how it goes for sure.
Yeah, and so we had a little bit of a struggle finding people to fill out the list. So one, you might be asking, well, if this is an anthology, where's MGS5? And the answer to that, unfortunately, is that we didn't have we just didn't have the manpower to fill out 5 quite yet, either Phantom Pain or Ground Zeroes. In fact, the only 2 who submitted for those 2 games were Sparty and I, and Sparty also submitted for 4, of course. So the staff decided that it probably wouldn't be terribly wise to go in with one person running half of the relay.
Sparty is the unsung hero of modern Metal Gear.
So yeah, we're unfortunately just gonna have to. We're gonna skip MGS5, but we have Twin Snakes in its place, and that's gonna be a great race, as it usually is between Blue Metal and Airlian. So we do have something in place at the very least. So second on our list is actually something that's been kind of quietly passed around. We have, if you guys have taken our advice and gone and checked out MetalGearSpeedrunners.com, you may notice we have a whole landing page full of nice articles. In fact, the latest one was a wiki update done by our main man Plywood. But now we're opening up the submissions for in case anyone has something they'd like to say, any research they've done or what have you. But we're opening up the submissions for articles on the site. We're going to be, of course, there's going to be some vetting done. So we've got a team of editors standing by, mostly just staff, but whatever. But yeah, it's going to be open for just about anyone to submit a topic. So if you've got something you're interested in writing about, just go for it, and we'll have you sorted on that.
So, for those who have never used the wiki before, how would one go about getting to this landing page and this submission for the vet thing, in case I wanted to submit one myself?
So I'm not entirely sure how it works out myself just yet, but we'll be definitely getting some info out there in the very near future regarding that. But as for the landing page, all it is MetalGearSpeedrunners.com. It's the first page you see is where all of our articles are. In fact, yeah, I just went there right now, and the first thing I see is Scientist Snake's lovely face on the Wiki Report 2019. But we're this is just the announcement. We're gonna have more information forthcoming once we start getting things more settled. Of course, you're going to have an account. That is one thing we do know for sure. You're going to have an account, and once that happens, there should be a button somewhere that'll say, "Hey, submit an article." So yeah, like I said, more information forthcoming.
Cool.
So I guess leading in from those announcements, why don't we start getting into the meat and potatoes? I guess. Well, one of them. Okay, so we've gone through the appetizers. Now let's start the first main course. We have AGDQ game submissions that ended up a couple of weeks ago, last week actually. Sorry. There are a number of submissions. We have 1,756 total entries currently visible, which should be most, if not all of them. 24 or so, 23 rather, are Metal Gear, and a few of those are duplicate submissions or races or such. But yeah, we have MGSR has run the gamut from literally Metal Gear 2 all the way down to MGS Phantom Pain, along with, of course, MPO, Portable Ops, Ghost Babel, Snake's Revenge, and Twin Snakes. So, literally, we have 1 through 5 submitted this year for AGDQ, which is a fantastic showing. Great work to everyone involved, and of course, we wish everyone luck. These things don't always go our way, but having so many names, so many games on offer definitely does improve the chances for the community. But Sarge, you submitted MGS4 for this, and you've also submitted some other non-Metal Gear games.
Yes.
Why don't you walk us through some of your games?
Okay. So they're pretty obviously not Metal Gear. If you search my name up, you can see I submitted MGS4. This year I went with TBE, since last year I didn't submit TBE and it didn't get in. But alongside MGS4, submitted 2 first-person shooter games. Resistance 3, which I was actually going to run at the TFA 2, but due to some schedule issues, I ended up swapping to Fall of Man, which if you search the Twitch archives, you'll see that. But you could also look up the game itself. They're both first-person shooters that take place in the Resistance universe developed by Insomniac. Basically, it's the human fights an alien species, and one-man armies them all till he wins.
Of course.
Pretty generic or general first-person shooter story, but they're quite fun games. They're very challenging too. I'm not gonna say they're cult classics, but because they're more well known than that. But it's a game series that kind of just fell off the face of the earth. Like the people who like Resistance still like Resistance. Everyone else is just like, oh yeah, that's a game I remember that came out, and then they move on past it. Taifu is a PlayStation 1 game that is apparently really popular in Europe, but you play as a tiger and you have to basically find out what happened to your father. Well, you know your father was killed, but the dragon comes in and attacks the monastery where you're growing up after he finds out where you are, and you have to go through, defeat his generals in order to reach dragon and punch him in his face with your kung fu to win the game. It combines some platforming, some action adventure, some beat 'em up. It's a little bit of everything in a simple package with some out of bounds, some skips. So it's and it's under an hour. So it's generally a really good game that I think actually has a strong chance of potentially getting in. And then the other game I submitted is Apocalypse, which is probably a lesser known game. But if you look it up, the first thing you'll find is probably Bruce Willis. And you'll think, is this based off of a movie? No. Apocalypse is actually an original game that Universal or Activision brought Bruce Willis in, had him record all these lines, and then canceled the game. And they saw a company that you may know called Neversoft. This is back in their early days before they ever put out Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. Activision was like, hey, Neversoft, you put this game out and we liked it. We're going to buy you and we want and give you all these Bruce Willis lines. Make this game for us. And so they did. It's one of those like over the head shooters. It uses one analog stick moves, one shoots in a direction when you point it, and you can collect a bunch of different unique weapons that do a lot of unique things, such as the rip laser, the flamethrower, the plasma beam, whole bunch of interesting stuff. It's a run and gun with a few sequence breaks, and there's a really big skip that would be awesome if I could get it, but I've not successfully pulled it off yet, so I only have third place.
Right. No. I have actually seen Apocalypse, or I've seen the game. If you haven't, it's a definite treat. You should go. You should go find some footage of it. It is it is something to behold.
The VOs in that were great. Like the guards just shout the randomest stuff.
And like I don't want to say he sounds disinterested, but Bruce Willis has certainly turned in more convincing performances.
Like it's funny because there's one line I think they had him scream a curse word, but it sounds more like he's yelling at CJ to follow the damn train. So I don't know what he says during this scene. I also forgot to mention that Tai was made by Activision in collaboration with DreamWorks. So just picture Kung Fu Panda, but with PS1 graphics.
Okay.
And a tiger. Sorry, I wanted to mention that.
Oh no, you're good. It's all good. Yeah, no, those sound like a pretty solid lineup, and of course, good luck on that. That's
thank you.
Really, I know the feeling of just wanting so badly to get on the stage. So I don't know. I've said this a few times around the Discord, but I don't think anyone I don't think I've ever actually spoken this out loud. But there was a year in which I was backup actually. AGDQ 2016 when Jag ran MGS2 European Extreme. I was actually on backup for that. Never actually was able to make it out to the event, so. But yeah, no. So those are your submissions.
Mm-hmm.
Anything from anyone else you're interested in, perhaps?
Yeah. So when I was scanning the list, a couple games caught my eye that I think would actually be really enjoyable speedruns to watch. Specifically, I've played through Fatal Frame 1 and 2, and 4, and I saw Maxi submitted Fatal Frame, or Maxi Lobes. And I've never actually looked at a speedrun of the Fatal Frame games. So I'd actually be really interested to see if there's any interesting tech or anything there, because generally I liked the Fatal Frame quite a bit. Do you want me to just name all of them, or do you want to like alternate on the?
Yeah, we can alternate.
All right. So yeah, Fatal Frame 1, which is the one that was submitted, is the first one that I'm super interested in seeing.
And I have actually seen that run, and Maxi, as Maxi usually is pretty high up on the leaderboard for that. So he'd be a pretty solid candidate for showing off the game. And I the first time it's actually been on the GDQ Twitch page was for Frames Fatales. They had it as the outro game. So maybe they're coming around. Maybe they're seeing we can give this a shot. So here's to hoping. But a game I got here on my list is well, there's a couple of repeats from the last time we did the show like this, but one of the games on my list here is not a repeat. It's actually My Friend Pedro. It came out shortly, I think, after SGDQ this year. It's kind of like a twin stick shooter, kind of. It's got some interesting mechanics. It's got very interesting like movement and traversal. It's got like your wall jumping, rolling through obstacles, and as well as a couple of like stage gimmicks. And it's this really, really weird game about you and an imaginary banana friend. And it's very trippy, but it's also very fast. I think they're closing in on right around an hour. So it's a very quick, very quirky game. And the guy who's running it, St. Million, you may recall, he ran several things in the past. He's done like Hitman Blood Money on the stage. He's done like last year actually he ran Star Wars Episode 1 PS1, which was hilarious. If you haven't seen that run, definitely go check that out. But yeah, he's got a good host of runs that he's done, and I feel like this would be another good one for him to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've never seen Pedro before, like at all. I've not looked at the game or anything, but I've heard that it was really well received. So maybe I'll check it out. I'll be honest, I tend to look at the screenshot GDQ puts up, and I'm like, no, okay, I'll check that out.
Yeah, I've been watching him kind of grind out the game, and it's tricky. It's very tricky, in that it's kind of difficult. Not in that there's many tricks. I mean, you bunny hop all over the place and try to keep your momentum going forward at all times.
Oh, speaking of bunny hopping, so if none of you have ever heard of Adventures of Cookie and Cream, that's the game. Run Author Blues and Skybills are submitting that. They've submitted it a couple times now. It's a co-op game made by, you won't believe, From Software.
FromSoft.
And the way the game works is one player is a pink rabbit, one is a red rabbit, or an orange rabbit, and you basically have to go through this co-op. Instead of doing split screen, it literally draws a line down the middle of the screen, that lets your cameras move indifferently, or if both rabbits are within close proximity, it's one unanimous screen, and one rabbit has to do something like grab a rope and pull it to hold a crocodile in place so the other rabbit can jump past it. And the whole game is, I think it's 40 levels of co-op working together to solve puzzles and beat the game as fast as possible. So I tried my hands at a couple runs of that, but the one-player version of that is very difficult. The game only has 3 buttons per player: the analog stick, R1, and L1, which one jumps, one zooms, one jumps, one does action, and one moves you, and that's it. So one player, you'd have to control both rabbits with all the shoulder buttons and both analogs at the same time while on a 60-second timer.
Oof.
It's a pretty complicated solo speed run, but co-op, I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and Author Blues is a pretty much a mainstay at the events. So he knows how to work a crowd.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen the game myself, but it sounds like it has a lot of the draw and appeal of like a Goof Troop run, co-op run. Which of course that's been at several events at this point.
Yeah, and
very classic.
It was submitted to this year as well.
Of course, yeah. It's a very classic speedrun. Speaking of classic speedruns, Oblivion.
Oh, was that submitted? I missed it.
Yep. Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, submitted by the Fun Cannon. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I can give it a quick look. I can't remember quite what. Any percent no Dragonfires skip. Estimated about 35 minutes. It allows out-of-bounds glitches, but disallows the skip that makes any percent a 3-minute category. So no clipping through into Talos Plaza.
I mean, I've never seen an Oblivion speedrun. As far as I'm concerned, you get on a horse, turn it sideways, and you shoot across the world, just like Skyrim.
Not quite. In Oblivion, Oblivion is arguably a more broken game. I say arguably because I can't quantify how broken these stupid Elder Scrolls games are. They're all mess. They're all a mess, but Oblivion happens to be one of like my actual favorite of the series, and I actually spend a fair amount of my time playing and breaking it on my own time, and I love seeing the creativity that goes into the skips, like the out of bounds and all that. And the Fun Cannon is a pretty fun guy, as his name may or may not suggest.
To be fair, to Oblivion's made by Bethesda, right? It's Elder Scrolls.
Mm-hmm.
Playing a Bethesda game and not experiencing a glitch is probably means the game's more broken than if you actually experience a glitch.
Pretty much. It's running like all the Elder Scrolls games at this point run off of like ancient engines that really just should be tossed out and replaced entirely at this point, but it's probably way too expensive now. Even though they rake in hundreds of millions of dollars by remaking the same one over and over again.
Yeah. Skyrim 2020 edition.
Yeah. But you got one more?
Yeah. I planned plenty out in advance, depending on how long you want to keep this train going. So interesting fact about me: the first game I ever sped run was called Pandemonium for the PlayStation 1. You won't find it because I don't have any VODs. I've deleted them all, and it's not on speedrun because it's like a 29-minute category, and I took 41, and I took like an hour and 30 to beat the game. I was so ashamed. I like to describe it to people as it's a platformer that has 2 buttons, jump and shoot, and it eats your jump inputs. But someone submitted Pandemonium 2. He's the only guy that runs the game as far as I know. And if you look up Pandemonium 1 and you go, holy crap, this is a game that exists, look up the intro to Pandemonium 2 and you'll realize that Crystal Dynamics, they made it and it was published by Midway. So just imagine this already. Everyone who worked on the game was on psychedelics the entire game. I'm not even kidding. There are levels where you have to chase a giant bee through a rainbow sky, through mouths that eat you, and mushrooms you have to jump on. And if you are too slow, he warps you back to the beginning of the level. So you can do it all again, just so you can hop on the Soul Train and ride in 3 giant clown car mouths to save the children. Those are 2 levels of the game. It is a game that is worth checking out just to say, what is this game? If nothing else. Also, Pandemonium, to my knowledge, has never been featured in any marathon, so it'd be good for someone to run it in some form.
All I can say is we all live on a yellow submarine.
Yeah. I don't know if the Beatles have anything on this game. It's that bad.
It certainly sounds, well, like a trip. Like from just from hearing it explained, I don't think anyone really needs to enhance their perceptions to enjoy this one. But I do have another one that I would like to bring up and then probably move on because I don't I'll be honest, I don't know how whatever. I can't remember. I can't think of the words. But I do have one more, and it's more of an honorable mention than anything. But it is an interesting video game, and it comes up anytime you search for Metal Gear on the game submission list. Spy Fiction. Spy Fiction is a Square 65 game released for the PS2. It's stealth action, and it is jank as fuck. It is literally one of the most jank games I think I have ever seen, but it's also somewhat endearing. So one of the core conceits is that you have this cloak that allows you to disguise yourself as literally anyone on the map, so long as you snap a picture of them. So it's kind of like Hitman, but really not that in depth. So I haven't seen the speedrun. I don't know what it looks like. All I know is what the game itself looks like, and I can imagine the sort of shenanigans that go on in the run. So, like, I wanted to... I do want to see it, but I think more than anything, it deserves at least an honorable mention, because I don't think I've ever seen anyone submit Spy Fiction before. So something I do want to say about it is that I'm pretty sure they're not going to be doing disguises in the run, but seriously, that's a fantastic idea. If a bit silly, snap a picture, go hide in a dumpster, and all of a sudden you're this other character model. But yeah, it's definitely in the vein of a Metal Gear game. It's got that very irreverent, silly feeling going on with it. But yeah, that's some things to look forward to for HDQ coming up here in January. Of course, like I said, Games List drops on October 6th. So we are waiting kind of in bated breath to see what happens with that. You know, of course, we have over 20 submissions for MGS games alone. So, you know, big time fingers crossed. Good luck to everybody who submitted. But with that, I think we're going to move on into some MGS4. And
Awesome.
that's your area of expertise on that. So
you've done a run. You can apply some knowledge.
I have done runs. I have I have attempted to learn. I have technically done runs in form of anthology shenanigans,
Yeah.
but I honestly don't know all that much. So, I mean,
It's a big game. There's a lot to know about it. I don't know how it translates between other Metal Gears, but for a good way to describe 4 is if you pull out a grenade in 4, you have multiple things to consider. How hard are you pushing the button? Because that determines if you're going to throw it overhand or underhand. Where's your camera oriented? How far up or down on the Y or the Z axis is your camera? How far left or right is Snake turned? Like, literally, I'm not going to say pixels because MGS4 is this huge 3D game, but let's say centimeters for lack of a better term. If Snake is positioned 1 centimeter slightly angled differently, the grenade that you normally throw that has 100% consistent chance of landing in this spot and creating smoke in this pattern and causing these two Haven troopers to cough, you turn that 1 centimeter and you just bonked it off of a tree and it lands on Snake. Like, it can actually be that drastic in some cases.
I believe it.
Yeah, 4 is this. It's a really intricate game, and suffice to say, if something's going wrong, I'm willing to say it's almost certainly your fault. It's going wrong just because of how 4 works. Like, there's no nice way to put that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's I like to give the game some crap, but it is impressive. It is very impressive in what it tries to do in the scope of the project. And I think we've probably said it a few times before, but MGS4 is basically magic.
Yes.
It's basically magic.
MGS4, how do they work?
In fact, something that I think we've been meaning to mention, but the emulator guys behind RPCSS X3 have finally started making some huge strides in getting MGS4 playable. But even then, it's like, how does this work exactly?
It's so unique. They have to release a patch specifically for the game, and it still crashes for people.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know how to lead you off into this one, but I guess like what's the sort of history behind the speed run specifically?
So from what I could tell, and I spent a couple hours digging into this, MGS4 actually, it was released in June of 2008, and within 2 days, 2 people known as the Thrillness and Magnum66 posted a thread on SCA, and they started glitch hunting the game. So the long and short of glitches is the only 2 things that came out that weren't Snake goes through a wall and soft locks, or Snake goes through a wall and falls to his death, were something known as Resistance Trick, which actually has a really big history according to what I found, and another glitch called Rubble Skip, which you can find it on the wiki or in the forums, but no one does Rubble Skip, even though it's like I think it's like a 6-8 second time save, because that whole grenade issue I was talking about, you need to throw it perfect, time Snake's roll perfect, so it launches you out of bounds. If you miss it, if you're going for it and you're in even a single segment, it's like just reset. You're only like 8 minutes into the run max. So the first speed run I was able to find of the game was actually by a Japanese runner who did it 17 days after the game came out, known as Hai, and then the Japanese character for new, followed by the Greek character for new. And he recorded this run in about 5 parts on Nico Video. And SDA talked about this, and there's like, I have a link here if you'd like me to post it to the SDA thread. But there's like 6 pages of people talking about this. In his second, he did 2 runs. The first one, where he did what we commonly know as single segment, and then the second run, when he got to Act 3, there was no Resistance member. And there's like 3 pages of people going, why is there no Resistance member? Why can he just run to the end? What's going on here? And another guy known as Tri-Ace Fanboy came in, and he sat down and he actually worked on trying to figure this out. And on August 20th, so like 20 days after the game came out, he comes back and he says, I figured it out. I know how you do it. He posted a description on it, and he followed by, this just feels like cheating. And SDA promptly banned Resistance Trick.
Of course.
So yeah, back then Resistance Trick was banned. We know now on speedrun, it's no longer banned. It's a basic requirement to get a decent time in multi-segment. To anyone who doesn't know what Resistance Trick is, I suppose I should detail this. Basically, the way MGS4 works is every time you enter a new room, it checkpoints your whatever weapons you have equipped, what your ammo count is, and all of this stuff. So if you make a save, it saves at that checkpoint, not anywhere else in the room. So you can spend 20 minutes in a room, unload all of your ammo, save, and you'll go back to the save or to the last checkpoint.
Mm-hmm.
So the interesting thing is that the save for Snake's data, like his position and everything, is irrelevant of the Resistance member, who is a guy you have to follow in Act 3. So what you do is you get him through the room into the next room, save in the first room before you get him out, and then save in the second room after you get him over, and that saves Snake's data like it should, but the Resistance is in the next room. And then you reload your previous save, and you just jog through to the end, because the Resistance is saved in the next file as being in the next room. And overall, that saves no time RTA. RTA, it adds like 8 minutes, but
yeah,
IGT, it saves about 14 minutes. Just like that's how long, even with the 2 speed ups that we found on the Resistance, that it still saves about 14 minutes. It's pretty crazy.
Right. Yeah, and just to kind of go back a few moments here.
Yeah.
The 2 names you mentioned, very, very familiar names. They're also the guys who found a lot of the skips and tricks in MGS1 as well, the Thrillness and Magnum. So definitely some serious vets there in terms of the speedrun and glitch hunting.
Yeah, they definitely, like, if you search that thread I posted, you could see there's just pages and pages of Magnum uploading, here's this 15, 20-second video of Snake going out of bounds here, Snake going out of bounds here, just tons and tons of videos on that. So if you're ever interested in how can I break MGS4 for the fun of breaking it, that's a great SDA thread to go through. I considered trying to catalog them all on the wiki, but I think that would just bog the wiki down with so much information that's not needed. So I'll probably just drop the SDA on it, just say, hey, here's an interesting resource if you ever want to check it out.
Yeah. But so you've so far you've talked a lot about like Act 3 rather, which if anyone isn't familiar with the game, Act 3 is essentially one long auto scroller followed directly by another long auto scroller followed by a boss fight. So
which is arguably an auto scroll.
But
it's great.
But you mentioned that the first one at least you can speed up a little bit. Is that just by taking like soldiers out in the path ahead, or?
So there's 2 different things you can do. The first one does rely on that. Every run usually does this. You shoot the guards with a tranq gun, and then you could supposedly lethal them if you wanted, or stun them, but the most efficient method is to put them to sleep and then drag them out of sight of the Resistance member. Because normally what the Resistance does is he'll stop, he'll look at the bodies, and he'll investigate them for almost every set. There's one set that, as long as you take them out where they're standing, he'll actually ignore, interestingly enough. But yeah, you could drag them aside, and that lets the resistance just keep going. But what I meant by speed up in terms of the speed run is there's actually two shots that me and another old runner of the game, old runner, Stoneman. Some of you may know him as Kaz, EXGX Stoneman, Stoner. What we found was there's two spots, one at the very start of the first room and one at the very start of the third room, that if you shoot will actually make the resistance member run in a specific pattern so that he'll actually move further ahead of where his path would intend him and then return to a point ahead of where he would normally have walked to or stopped to. Every other point we've tried this, he always runs off on some side path or some offshoot, and then you have to wait for him to finish cowering and come back out, and he walks back to where you scared him at, which you can obviously imagine how much time that loses. But these two save, I think the first one saves 15, and the second one saves like 45 seconds. So that alone, these two shots, which based off of how MGS4 works, if you shoot the wrong spot, he could do bad things. I mean, that saves you a minute alone in Act 3 with those two shots. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, no, that does sound pretty neat. Like I said, I have vague knowledge, kind of, but I haven't really gone in depth with a lot of it. Like, I started learning Act 1 and Act 2, and then I kind of realized what was coming up next, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, that's everyone's thought. They're like, "Oh no, Act 3."
But no, it's interesting to hear about the sort of things that kind of speed up what would otherwise be maybe not the fastest part of the run. And so, more than a small part of me wishes that you could just like go straight to like the cathedral and be done with it. But so, Act 3 aside, is there any significant time save, or is it all just kind of efficiently doing things like efficient routing, boss fights, and sort of that thing?
Pretty much the game is pure execution based. I'm trying to think of anything crazy that would fall under not execution. But I mean, like I said, there's very little RNG in the game, period. Pretty much every boss is an auto scroller of some kind. I use that term loosely at this point. They're more like scripted, like every boss has phases. They'll do specific things at specific times, but they're always reacting to what you are doing.
Right.
Like if you shoot, I'm gonna bring up a boss later, Mantis. Mantis has these two dolls. If you shoot Mantis's doll, she'll move to the opposite direction. Like if she just moved right, she'll move left. And then she'll usually almost immediately pull up her doll strings to bring all of the frogs in the room to her. But if you're already aiming, she'll actually spin instead. And you'll probably end up missing. She can also move, she can also jump to you, and these all happen, based off of what Snake's doing. Is he already aiming? Is he not aiming? Does he miss the doll? Because that also causes her to jump. And then once she jumps to you, where she returns back to is one of the few points of RNG, but after that, it's all scripted. And that's just one example of a boss fight. Most of them are like that.
Right.
If you broke it down, their pattern is always the same as long as Snake does the same thing every time. So I'd say it's pretty entirely execution based with very few exceptions that don't significantly detract from the speedrun. At least I can't think of anything that's like the rat in MGS1. Like you get good rat or you get bad rat, but I don't think there's anything of that level in an MGS4 speedrun off the top of my head.
Right. So I have gone on record before saying that the bosses of the game are not my favorite. I find them all, yeah. Like, so I guess knowing kind of how the patterns work, how long did it take to kind of narrow in on the most optimal way to fight these guys?
Oh, well, considering the fact that I got all of my information from Snock's run, and I came after he had already posted his run. I've not honestly checked out the runs earlier than Snock's. Prior to his run, there were 1, 2, 3, 4, I think, runs prior to his run that were actually like a competitive, like I mean, really good, like hour 30x times that were worth studying. But I got all of my stuff from him, and considering Snock's run was submitted in 2016, whereas the first run by I think it was here Cosmo JP did the first one in 2009. Somewhere between there it was developed, so that's a year to 6 years for people to have a really good understanding of how to accurately do these bosses in a fashion that is acceptable to a big boss run, since that's what all these early runs were, big boss.
Right. Of course.
Yeah, to do it in a manner that worked really well for that and didn't lose excess time because the boss did weird things, so you didn't do enough damage to meet thresholds or things like that.
Yeah, I remember on one of my last anthology attempts, I can't remember who it was, but I think it was one of your viewers was in my chat helping me along with some of the bosses, and I was like, you know what, that actually makes a stark amount of sense to do it that way. Like, I think it was Wolf using stun and flash rounds in the grenade launcher, and then smoking Wolf out to kind of stop her in place.
So Wolf's actually an interesting one to bring up, because the Wolf quick kill, as we call it, was known about by Snock, but if you go back and watch his run, what he actually does in his single segment run is he gets the typical Wolf spawn. So if you've never played 4, Wolf is this giant mechanical beast that's intended to be a sniper fight reminiscent of Sniper Wolf from the first game. You're supposed to shoot her with a sniper rifle when her head is exposed, because she can track you using the frogs, using your footprints, using the direction of the wind even, because she can actually smell Snake. It's the only place in the game where your wind direction really matters. But the quick kill was you'd get her to spawn in the typical location. She has a 100% spawn chance on liquid easy, and I think it's like 97 naked normal. But starting on solid normal, that chance lowers, and she could start spawning in other spots. And you would blindly chuck a smoke grenade over a wall, and you want it to land right in front of her nose so that she starts coughing, and then you run around the wall and you shoot her a couple of times with the smoke grenade. But what I developed, because I was running non-big boss runs, I didn't care about alerts, was you can consistently run down the right side and equip night vision on your solid eye. You could see every single one of her spawn points on your way to her last spawn point, and then you could use a direct visual indicator to guarantee that the smoke grenade always lands in front of her, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with the MGL, and the fight's done. So it takes out a lot of hope, because if you hit Wolf directly with a smoke grenade, she closes up and runs after you, and that loses immeasurable amount of time, because you have to find her, you have to know where she is. Like, Wolf is the big RNG point of the game. That's, now that I'm talking about it, I realize now, that is the part of the game that you go, please give me good RNG. Because if Wolf's in a bad spot, you're losing time. If you miss Wolf, she moves to another bad spot. Yeah, I've lost more runs than I want to consider to Wolf, learning how that fight works and a whole bunch of stuff to it.
Yeah, I mean, on paper, it sounds like a really good. I know it's like on par with like the end. It sounds like one of those boss fights.
Yeah.
But then when you get to it, it's just like, well, I'm sitting here, I'm trying to find this damn boss. And if you move, she's likely to move if you're not aware of all the factors. Like if you stay still, you're not likely to find her for half an hour.
Mhm.
It's one of those boss fights where it had the potential to be like this kind of nice, really good set piece, and then it just kind of all the tension kind of flies out the window in face of frustration instead.
Yeah. It's if you wanted to think about it as MTS3, imagine you're fighting the N, but where the N starts is random. He actually doesn't start in the same spot every time, and the Ocelot unit is in every room hunting you the whole time.
That
Imagine that big your MGS3. It's just all one area because it's the PS3 instead of 3 separate areas.
Yeah, but yeah, no, like when I kind of got told, all right, here's how you at least mitigate some of this. I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, but I don't know. Like knowing that most of your time is either going to be saved or bled on the bosses or the mandatory encounters for that matter. It's I don't want to say it's like harrowing, but it's definitely less, I guess, chill than most of the other MGS runs where things can go wrong, sure, but it's not to this like magnitude.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like now, whenever I'm doing these runs, because I'm working on beating Mr. Snock on TBE, I want the unanimous New Game Plus records.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a matter of okay, I'm past this point, the rest of the run is free, until I land the final punch on the final boss, because every single boss in that game is a reset point.
Mm-hmm.
You could lose time if you mess up the first boss, if you mess up the last boss. All of them are don't mess up or you lose 2 minutes. And there you go. I don't want to toot my own horn, but on my level, like that's your run. It's gone. You messed up. There's no chance now.
And since you brought it up, why not? Let's kind of dive a little bit into the geriatric fist fight. I most people would probably consider that to be like maybe not without a strategy, but definitely kind of just like, all right, I'm gonna start punching now, and I won't stop until he's done. So what kind of stuff goes into that?
So, if you've played Metal Gear Solid 1, then you'll know of this thing. I think you called it looping.
Mm-hmm.
And MGS4 is the same idea. Liquid, as I said earlier, he is a very reactionary boss. He takes the first initiative only once. Only at the very start of his phases. Every phase, his first move is always set in stone. After that, it's always, what did Snake do? I'm gonna react to that.
Okay.
So if you know his first move, you could capitalize on that, and then we just do the 1-2. It's punch, 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 and it just spins him in a circle until he phases. It's actually harder than it sounds, because if you tap too fast in that, Snake actually has a 1-2 3 combo. He'll do a kick after that. He'll do 1-2 kick, and that kick will actually knock Liquid down, which you lose time waiting for him to get back up, and you let him react to where Snake is on the field, because that determines, and how far away he is from you, because that determines what Liquid's going to do. So it's always, where is Liquid? What is his most likely next move? If he gets out of my loop, is this move that he's going to do a move that could kill me? Because actually only certain moves that Liquid does can actually kill you. His typical punches will never kill Snake. You could do the entire fight at 0 health visible. As long as you don't get hit by his killer moves, which are actually the scripted move. Each one has different phases. Most notably, if you've ever speedrun the game or played the game casually at like on the highest difficulty, you might know something called the Liquid headbutt, as we call it. That headbutt can kill, and he can chain that 5 times in a row if he wants. So it's very mean, but I mean, realistically, it's just it's a game of strategy. If he gets out of the loop, what do I do? If he's in the loop, keep it going. Watch his health, because his health, when it stops going down, the next attack you do, regardless of what it is, automatically phases. Mm-hmm. So the fastest, keep him in that loop, and then phase him as fast as possible once you see his health stop.
Right.
Did that answer the question? I think I might have gone off on a tangent there.
Oh no, that's perfectly fine. So he does, like you say, he does have phases. And the phases like unlock, I guess, attacks of his every time you progress. Like in the MGS1 portion, all he's got is like the punch kick, maybe the rush if you're too far away and let him fall over. Is there anything that actually changes about the loop in regards to what you have to do to keep it going, or is it always just the double punch?
Okay. So the loop is always going to be the double punch, but the thing is, he actually doesn't add new moves in. His whole moveset changes. Mm-hmm. Because the way the fight is, the first one's Liquid, so he has like Liquid moves. The next one is Revolver Ocelot, so he has Revolver Ocelot moves, or Liquid Ocelot, sorry. The third one is Revolver Ocelot, so he has Revolver Ocelot moves. Like, it's totally different moves. Mm-hmm. On top of that, the camera changes to a different perspective, I think, to symbolize what the closest fight would be in that game. So, like in MGS1, he'll do his usual, he can do the 1-2, and then he has 2 moves that can knock you down, an elbow or his charge. Both of those knock you down, but that's about it. As long as you could pretty much dash to him as he dashes to you, and immediately put him in the 1-2, and phase 1 is done. Mm-hmm. Phase 2 is where the fight changes. Because now your camera is, like, if this is Snake and this is you, I'm, like, here. This is where the camera is. Mm-hmm. So you have to get up to Liquid, and he actually starts with his guard up, so you have to break his guard, and then keep him in this loop. But Liquid, at this point, if you mistime the loop just a little bit, he can hop backwards out of it. And typically he has this wind-up, like, Tommyknocker punch that is the scariest move in his repertoire. You have to dodge that, or the amount of time and health you lose is immeasurable. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's literally measurable, but it's bad.
Yeah.
And then he, depending on how Snake is positioned and how the camera works, it's actually possible for him to be outside of your loop range. So you'll try to go for the loop, and he'll react to your punch by dashing backwards. And then when he's backwards, it's kind of random. Like I said, it depends how close Snake is. He'll either dash forward, and then you could start the chain again, or he'll dash backwards and go for the punch again. So You have to watch out for that. And then phase 3, he is the CQC phase. He starts with his hands together. The fastest way to do it is like to dash up to him, do a strong punch to break his guard, and then begin the cycle. But if you drop it, because like the camera actually does affect how your timing on the cycle is, interestingly enough. If you drop it, he switches to like this open palm stance like this, and he will CQC anything and everything you throw at him, unless you strong punch him from really far away. So at that point, it becomes, please close your hands, Liquid. I want to continue the loop and not get CQC'd on you. Because, if with his hands closed, he'll punch, and then grab and headbutt you. And with his hands open, it's just cutscene, 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 cutscene. cutscene. So the fight could either go slow or it could go or fast or it could go really slow, and everything cutscenes you by that point. Phase 4 is nothing really to write home about. You take 3 steps forward and you throw the first punch and you win as long as you mash the punch button.
Yeah, so what basically it is fairly involved. It's essentially like a 3D fighter in MGS.
Yeah, I'd say it's a watered down 3D fighter, but it's fan service, the fighting game Metal Gear Edition. Like that's what it is. Like I actually really like the fight. And if you want to actually look into it, I recorded this like 5-part video series on the wiki that documents each phase, what he can do, which ones are bad, which ones are okay, what he's likely to do, what he isn't likely to do. You can check all of that out. It's not the best video, but a video is better than none.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But yeah, is there like just anything off wall you'd like to mention about it? About the run?
About the run itself? I mean, something worth noting about the game in general is that in July 27th, 2018, Strafe Machine actually put a comment in general chat saying he would give $200 to the first person to ever achieve a sub 210 single segment new game big boss run. And interestingly enough, October, that's like 3 months later, Jaguar King does this. And I asked him earlier, I said, yo, Jag, did Strafe ever pay you? And he's like, what? So we'll see how that goes. But I mean, since 2018 happened, pretty much since I joined, I don't know if it's related to the fact that I joined and started running the game, but runners have just started coming in, and I know I'm not the one who brought the runners in, but the game has just literally doubled, which is saying 1 to 2, but 2 to 4. But the amount of runners has multiplied exponentially on the game, so more runs are being done. Sparty just recently took all of the new game world records for a single segment, so congrats to Sparty for taking all of that. I have all of the ILs right now, whether they're good times or not. I'm working on the New Game Plus unanimous runs from Snock. So, I mean, yeah, I don't really know if there's anything that's not really specific about it other than that. Anything else you'd like me to detail or to ask?
Sure. How, in your opinion, and I know you've done a lot of the work on it, how detailed is the wiki at this point for MGS4 specifically? In case someone would like to come along and learn this.
For New Game Plus, I put a lot of videos and stuff up on it that give a pretty good like baseline idea that you can work off of. But in terms of new game content, specifically, I don't run that, so I don't put any videos up. And the game is, I guess to actually make it more general than that, if I don't run that category, it's probably not on the wiki. The only thing up there, and credits to Sparty for this, is he recorded how to do Act 1 new game style, big boss style, which is a very good tutorial up there for people. But after that, it drops off. It's like, well, how do I do Act 2? How do I do Act 4? What if I want to know this specific room that usually gives people questions? Because those all fall outside of what I usually do. But
right.
boss wise, every boss except for Frogs 1 is up with a good way to do it. For any category. Except maybe New Game Plus versus New Game. There's a couple differences for some like Raven. But again, that falls down to I don't run New Game, so the strats are a little different. But big boss wise, which is the thing most people run in MGS4, or I guess they aim for it and then come what may in 4. Those are the strats they aim for, so those are the ones they want to look at. Even if it's slower, it's more interesting to a large chunk of people to do it that way. So they want to know those strats.
Yeah, it's a combination of style points and I guess the challenge of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Challenge, looking cool, and doing it fast. Like, you can walk in a room A, and you could shoot every guard in the room, and then you could walk through and be like, hey, look, I did it, no alerts. Or you can walk in, throw a smoke over here, trank this guard, and then roll and then trank this guard, so that no guards see you, and you killed nobody. Like, that, even though you obviously lost time, it looks cooler, which is exactly what you were saying.
But yeah, I don't specifically have any more questions. Nothing really springs to mind. But yeah, doing tutorial work for like a wiki or just in general, it does take a lot of time and a lot of effort. So if in the future there would be more demand for it, would you potentially think about doing like a new game set of videos or anything like that?
Actually, I am considering learning Liquid Easy and Naked Normal new game for the sake of knowing how to do it. I might not be able to record the best tutorials, but if I know the basis of how it's done, then yeah, absolutely. The only thing I have no plans to ever do is do a big boss speedrun, because I spent my 12 and a half hours on that casually. I don't need to put the next 100 hours in to do it faster.
Right.
I just not my playstyle. I prefer to play the game fast, even if it's 60 alerts and 300 kills. Like, that's just what I prefer in MGS4.
Right. And well, I mean, you've also got to think about it this way, in that MGS4 kind of lends itself to that a little bit more, because in the older games, sure, you have the option. They added first-person aiming in like 2 and 3, but MGS4 was the first one where they were like, all right, this is now an over-the-shoulder experience with free aim, like absolutely free camera control. Do what you will. So it definitely does lend itself a little bit better to the kind of third-person action, as on top of being like the third-person stealth action. So.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to combine the two, because obviously when you put the time in for a big boss, you get an item called the Big Boss Mask. And I've actually had multiple people complain they don't like the Big Boss Mask. The Big Boss Mask was cheating. The Big Boss Mask makes the game cheap. It makes the game unfair, because they have people who don't have it and don't want to earn a big boss have to compete against that. I mean, it's not a special item, so it doesn't count against you if you wanted to use it. It actually saves like 5 minutes. Like, you put 12 and a half hours in to save 5 minutes on the speed run. And everyone has to listen to every single soldier scream, because it incites fear, which is why it's good. So I've actually considered, separating different things, but the problem is MGS4 has actually maybe one person who actively runs the game. If I added another thing like Big Boss Mask, yes or no, half the boards are now empty, and it's the same problem that some of the other ones have had. It's just it's not worth getting that specific at this level yet. Like, there's complaints, but it's just not worth it, because you'll divide the community so much when we only have so many people already.
Right. So, I guess to kind of put a nice little bow on things, if you were trying to sell this speedrun to somebody to learn how to speedrun MGS4, what would your salient points be for that?
That's a good question. Act 3 is actually fun.
Okay.
No, that's not my point. Act 3 sucks. What would I say to make someone want to play MGS4? I mean, MGS4 is a game that gives you the freedom to play how you want. I think is a really fair way to say it. Like, even though that grenade being 1 centimeter off could make or break the run, that grenade being 1 centimeter off was purely your choice. Like, you could do that way, you could do it another way. MGS4 is a very open game. The menus are really fleshed out. The game feels good when you get past the fact that it runs at maybe 20 FPS ever. It really is fan servicey and cutscenes. So if you enjoy the game, the story wise, you get to experience that. You don't have to match through codecs. That might bring people over.
It's true. It's true.
And I mean, like, I say fan servicey in terms of Metal Gear, but I also mean fan servicey in and of that aspect of you could do what you want. Like, if you want to approach the first room entirely stealth, you do it that way how you want. If you want to murder everyone in the first room, you do it that way because that's how you want. Like, MGS4 is a game suited to everyone's style. Like, I think every runner could have fun with the game, at least some aspects of the game. The problem is accepting everything that the game has, because not every act of the game is for everyone.
Right.
Different ones bring different things, and that's more an MGS4 problem itself than it is a problem of the speed run. So you'd have to look past that, and it's a great game. I mean, it's my third favorite game of all time, so I'd love if you came and ran it with us.
So yeah, as we do with pretty much every show now, if you're interested in learning MGS4 or any of the other games, we do have the wiki, which you can find at MetalGearSpeedrunners.com. You can find us on Twitter at MGSpeedrunners. We are here on Twitch, twitch.tv/MetalGearSpeedrunners. And you can find marathon VODs. You can find the archived version of the show, the archived video version of the show on YouTube. That's youtube.com/MGSR, I think. Let me just give that a double check real quick before I say that for sure. Well, it's not a vanity URL. It's a big old string, but it's you can find that on the website. There's a handy little link there, and of course you can find the audio version of the podcast on Spotify, Podbean, and Anchor FM. So thank you everybody for stopping by. Again, come find us on Discord. We have a link from speedrun.com. We've got a link from MetalGearSpeedrunners.com. And many of our individual runners also have links on their Twitch channels. So come join us. Come run some come run some Metal Gear and have a great time.
And remember, October 6th, Sunday, 2019, Anthology Run. If you want to see games 1, 2, 3, 4, or Twin Snakes run, be there. You'll see 2 people running it for twice the action.
Yeah, relay race. Exciting stuff. So, on behalf of Sergeant Silent, on behalf of PD Precious Roy, I've been Pythonicus, and we'll catch you next time.
Take care.